cameras are absolutely becoming a niche thing. Now, those who want proper photography, filmmaking, are still moving more consciously actually towards professional cameras. And actually, if you look at the most successful content online, it's of course not always shot on a professional camera, but as soon as you move into the more like the really those channels, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever, those who actually have the biggest reach in the end, of course, also use a professional camera, but it's not gonna be the, you know, the one thing that makes the huge difference. It's really the capability of storytelling and all those things.
What's new in filmmaking technology this week? News, reviews, education, insights, opinions, and ideas from the CineD newsroom with Nino Leitner and Johnny Bahiri. This is Focus Check, the weekly Cinetech podcast.
Welcome to episode 24 of the CineD Focus Check podcast. My name is Nino.
I'm Johnny.
You're still in Japan. You're still sweltering in the heat, I guess.
Absolutely. It's hot, it's humid, but it's Japan, so never complain about it.
Yeah, that's one thing you also mentioned in the Osmo Pocket 3 review. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I mean, we actually talked about it last week already, but now it's out. But let's start with some other stuff first. So we published a piece which was talking about an infographic actually that we found on the web, which is actually showing the development of smartphone sales in comparison to camera sales. Now, they showed first the sale of analog cameras starting in the 50s, I think, and how that grew, and then how the digital cameras completely took over starting from around 2000. And that really dwarfed the film camera development, and then again, how smartphones took over. Now, for those of you watching this in the video version, I'm just going to play this here, because it's just interesting to see. So, yeah, as I said, I mean, it's film camera sales starting in 1951. And you see on the left-hand side, you see millions of units sold per year. It starts with 0.2 million, and then it grows to 5 million in 71. And that's when really an exponential growth starts. Until the 80s, we are, I think, 20 million. And then it grows and grows and grows and grows. It's all film cameras still. I mean, we're talking about film photo cameras, of course. Yeah, this is really not motion picture cameras. And then there's a peak in 2000, and then it drops sharply. And when around 2001, and I remember, I think I bought my first digital camera, I think it was 2000. It was a Kodak, forgot the name. I still have it somewhere here. It's not working anymore.
DC something, 240?
Yeah, it was very expensive. I think it was like, I mean, I was
but
like,
it was
what?
Nice.
Yeah.
3 megapixels. I had the similar thing.
No, I had a 1 megapixel version.
1 megapixel.
1 megapixel,
oh,
and I paid, I mean, it was 18 or 19 at the time. So it's like €1,000 was like a fortune. And at the time, €1,000 was a fortune, I guess. But anyway, so that's when it took over. And you see in 2001, it's really exploding. And you see that it's not just the people who used to use film cameras who are now buying digital cameras. It's clear that there's a whole new market that got into digital, like into photography in general, which is interesting. And it grew to 100 million in 2005, 2006. And that's exactly when smartphones came first out, right? I think the iPhone was launched in 2007. Cameras in the beginning were still very bad. Well, smartphones were not the first phones to have cameras inside them. I mean, there were other phones before that had cameras inside them. But I think the smartphone enabled people to really see the image that they were taking. And then, of course, also send it directly from the phone to others and post it online and so on. Social media also started around that time. Facebook started around 2006-07. So you see this, how in this graphic, you see how it's completely dwarfed the camera sales. Now, of course, smartphones are not only sold because of their cameras, of course not, but you clearly see that as the cameras became, like the camera elements in those phones became better, the sales of the digital cameras in general started to suffer. And that's literally around 2012, 13, when we had the peak of the digital camera sales, and then they really dropped off a cliff. You see it here, I think, if I interpret that correctly, it was like 100 million, maybe 120 million cameras sold around that time, and then it dropped and it never recovered. We are talking about probably dropping down to 20 million. We recently, last week we talked about another post that actually camera sales have increased for the first time in a long time over the last 2 years. So they're kind of stabilized, and people are looking more at the professional cameras, interestingly, because of course the low end is dead. The low end is replaced by those smartphone cameras that keep getting better. But those who want more are also willing to invest more into a better camera. And with those new smart functions and a really good autofocus, even on large sensor cameras, a lot of people are finding it interesting again to invest into a more expensive digital camera. So, yeah.
But Nino, what do we actually want to say in such an article? Because we all know the facts. This is not really new. We all know that smartphone really killed the compact cameras. I think what this article really shows nicely in a graphical way what happened, like where is the point of it. But I'm actually more interested to know if the industry is actually did anything in order to combat this. What do you think? Do you see any device that is really giving a good fight to smartphones?
Yeah, I think we simply, as you said, we kind of knew this stuff, but we never really saw it in numbers and in a graphical way, like how extreme it is. It's just at the peak there were 100 million digital cameras sold per year, and there's currently 1,500 million. That means billion, like 1.5 billion smartphones sold every year. That's like 15 times more. And now the camera sales have dropped to 20 million. It's just the sheer size of that. I think in the beginning there was not a connection between those two because they were not really, and you see this, there was a time when both of them grew, but that the second the cameras became good enough for the average user to replace their digital camera, that's exactly what they did. It's like digital, and we see it like if you run around as a tourist anywhere, you hardly see any people using actual cameras anymore. There's always a few enthusiasts who do this, and usually they now have mirrorless cameras, like proper cameras with interchangeable lenses, but all the smaller cameras have been replaced by the smartphone. So we knew this, but it's just like interesting to see this like actually in numbers. And
my issue is the investment, because when you talk about such numbers, the traditional filming industry, the photo camera industry, has no chance to compete the smartphone companies when it comes to investment. Meaning, when you sell so many phones and everybody is in the business for money, if you identify a certain niche, if it's photography, like happened before, or maybe tomorrow it will be filmmaking, and they will be convinced that this is what can bring them money, what will happen to our industry, to our traditional industry? Because I can't see any of the leading companies, and it doesn't matter if it's from Japan, China, or any other place in the globe, that can compete Apple, Samsung, and such when it comes to investment. So this is the point that I'm a bit concerned about.
Yeah, I think the data is clear, and I think we've talked about this before, is that cameras are absolutely becoming a niche thing for like high-end quality. And that's also the point of this article, where Nick makes a very good argument that now those who want proper photography, filmmaking, are still moving more consciously actually towards professional cameras. And actually, if you look at the most successful content online, it's of course not always shot on a professional camera, but as soon as you move into the more like the really those channels, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever, those who actually have the biggest reach in the end, of course, also use a professional camera. But it's not gonna be the one thing that makes the huge difference. It's really the capability of storytelling and all those things. But Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they can't compete with them, and they're also shrinking kind of every year in terms of like what they do. So, I mean, we are kind of saying this almost every week that traditional camera companies have to innovate a lot more in order to make a difference and come up with something fresh. And I mean, the Osmo Pocket 3 review that you just did, I think the Osmo Pocket, I think, is a good example of something that's just a new kind of device that enables people to shoot in a different way, that has definitely found its market. It's a very good supplement to a smartphone, I think, but it's not gonna replace a smartphone, and it's also probably not replacing a traditional camera. It's something new that
Well, that's the
enables you
question
to
here.
shoot more.
The question is, if you have, for example, the Osmo Pocket 3 for video usage, and you have the a mobile phone for photography, this is the smallest kit ever that you have with you. And then the question is, would you still need to take a traditional camera? And I'm saying this not in order to, I just want manufacturers to notice, because sometimes I do feel that they are sitting in their headquarters. There is the marketing team that is pushing or trying to push and control, sometimes with arguments that are not relevant. And of course, there are the engineers who are trying to do their best, and the budgets are always getting smaller and smaller. So on one hand, they're really trying to do their best. On the other hand, the rhythm that the industry is moving, maybe the pace is much too fast. I mean, if you remember in the past, how often would a traditional DSLR or SLR or DSLR would come to the market? I don't know, every 3-4 years you will have a kind of a flagship and some models. Now, of course, the pace is much faster. So all I'm saying is, I really want the traditional manufacturers, and I'm sure, I know you are also into this. Last time you kind of played with the idea of eSIM in cameras, and obviously in Instagram there was so many comments about this idea. So people are looking for game-changing ideas. They want something fresh. They want something new. And our expectations, is it too much to ask? I don't know. I mean, I really wonder if it's too much to ask traditional manufacturers to come up with a non-traditional solutions. So I just really don't want our industry to end up like the car industry, when for years you built all of this knowledge around traditional engines, and then from one day to another, the engine is, I'm saying obsolete again. Of course it's not, but it is. And then you have Chinese car manufacturers that have no history and no tradition coming, and also American ones that kept capturing the arena quite fast and easy, because you don't need an engine anymore. So that's what I'm really fearing, and that's what I don't want to happen to our industry.
Yeah, I think I just wish that the innovation culture in those traditional companies would be bigger, in terms of like thinking literally outside of the box, and the box being that traditional camera size that we've seen for decades and decades and decades. That still, I mean, literally looks the same as in the 50s, 60s. And I mean, behind the scenes here, we have a few film cameras on the shelf here, and I talked to somebody yesterday who is not from our industry, because I have one at home as well, which is like a little Bolex with a pistol grip and a very nice shape, and it's a beautiful industrial design from, I don't know, 60s, 70s, maybe older, and you wonder, like, how innovative were they at that point? Because you saw a lot of those film cameras in different shapes and sizes, and they tried different things, and very much thinking about the ergonomics and kind of like, like a one-hand operation of something like this, which is almost impossible with a normal traditional mirrorless sized camera. I think you point that out in the Osmo review as well. And it's a very good point, because at the time, I mean, even for the film cameras, there was a lot of innovation for some time, and at some point they just got stuck in the same kind of like 35 millimeter small format photo camera size, right? That's where it all comes from. I mean, that's the reason that shape is simply there because there was a standard for those roll films that you put in the bottom where now the battery goes. That used to be where the actual film roll, well, actually you opened it at the back and then you put the film and, like you had to stripe it over, and then you took your 24 photos or 36, depending on what roll of film you got, or 12, and then you just, went to the lab, gave it to the lab to get it developed, and they copied that for the digital format, which is logical as a first step. But what now? I mean, it's like 20 plus years since we've had digital cameras. Isn't it time to kind of get out of this? I don't think, of course, I mean, maybe people are saying this is the perfect form factor for photographers, for sure. Is it the perfect form factors for video shooters? I'm not so sure. There's a lot of different things.
I don't know if you remember. I think it was maybe 3 years ago in one of the summits of Fujifilm. They, from nowhere, they came up with a certain concept that was like a Lego. Yeah, it was like you could literally build pieces, or like take certain pieces of the camera, put and match them together, and maybe that's one of the solutions. Yeah, that was just. I remember it came in and out and kind of forgotten. But I really wonder if this type of philosophy is what we need here, because obviously this struggle between photographers and filmmakers, hybrid cameras, one tool that can do it all. I would even attack it from a different direction altogether. Today, with so many good filming tools, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a smartphone and if it's a traditional camera. Everybody can take a video. Technically, everybody can do this. What everybody cannot do is tell a story. And this is and I would flip all of it all together and ask the camera manufacturers to start from how can they support storytelling in the best possible way. Because it's like the technical aspect. In the old days, I remember running with a big camera on my shoulder, the same as you. People will look at us and go like, wow, those are professionals. They can do video. They're probably working for TV stations. Yeah. Now, if you look at the Olympic Games in Paris, you also see so many mirrorless cameras on gimbals and whatever, which of course makes me very happy to see that all this technology kind of came down and also broadcasters are using it. But the tool as a tool is meaningless. Those cameras are so good now that we need to emphasize storytelling. That's the basic of everything. I get so many, I don't know if you're browsing YouTube, Facebook and such, you see sometimes big DPs, writing they're really, really happy about a commercial they did for whatever company. Sometimes I'm looking at it out of curiosity to see what is a big DP doing better than me and if I can learn something. And then what I see, and I'm not blaming the DP for that. I'm just saying as a concept, what you see is a collage of pictures, a bit meaningless with some titles, beautiful pictures, but meaningless. And that's it. There is a commercial. And then you ask yourself, where is the story? There is no story behind those beautiful images. And this is where I would like to start, telling a story. And then according to that, build a tool that can support me in the field.
And I think a good point, and I think one thing, and I think we should move on to the Osmo Pocket review because it's very well connected to this. We'll be back after this message from our sponsor. FilmConvert is a software company based in New Zealand that creates color grading and correction plugins so you can enhance your artistry. With their two plugins, FilmConvert Nitrate and CineMatch, you can take the stress out of any color correction or grading task. Both plugins work their unique camera packs as the team profiles each specific camera and its sensor that's supported. This means that the controls within the plugin are tailored to the specific camera brand, model and profile that your footage was shot with. While we all love shooting on film, the process and cost of actually shooting film can get quite exorbitant. However, you can get the dreamy and romantic look of celluloid film with FilmConvert Nitrate. Nitrate offers a range of different film stock emulations and grain sizes to choose from, each with customizable controls that can really dial in your desired look. Choose from one of Nitrate's motion picture, black and white or still stock emulations and a range of different grain scans to get the authentic look and feel of film. You can get 10% off Film Convert Nitrate when you use the code CineD at checkout. And now back to the show. Because you also got me thinking where you mentioned that, like it's simply a tool that doesn't get in the way. It's something that you can pick up and just use, and just the ability to have something that's small enough and unobtrusive enough to just switch on without a second thought, because you're not even in a private context, like you use this for a vacation and not professionally. It's something that you just pick up, switch on and take a shot. And then when you're done, you just flip it over and it's done again. And you don't have to take it out of the bag or whatever. It's small enough. It's intuitive enough. The ease of use is a big thing here, because it simply means you will produce more images, and you will produce. If you produce more images, you get more practice. You get better at it. It's not something you need to consciously take with you when you leave your home. That's also the reason why the smartphone is so successful. It's simply always on you because you are reachable. You need to be reachable, whatever. And it just happens to have a very good camera inside it. And of course, the best camera is always the one you have on you. And if that is something, and even for professionals, that means that a lot of us don't take cameras with us anymore unless we are on a job. Where in the old days, like I wouldn't even leave the house with a camera around my neck. Because I could just take photos and videos. And now it's like, okay, well, this is good enough. And it really is good enough. And it's not laziness, I think. It's just something that ease of use and those automatic functions, sometimes it's just capturing moments that you would otherwise miss. That ease of use is also important for professional tools. Of course, it depends on the context. But if we look at the big picture of the amount of footage that's being produced, most of it is not scripted, and it's not something that is like a commercial or a narrative film that is like written in a script that needs to be kind of processed in a way. A lot of also professional content is happening. It's actual events, it's sports, it's documentaries, it's capturing specific moments and whatever, putting them online or on TV, it doesn't matter. That's the, a lot of it is like that. And also, especially for sports or any action-packed stuff, it's important to get a lot of coverage, because then you get the good stuff. I think ease of use is definitely something that's on top of the storytelling is just simply having a device that's easy enough to pick up and shoot and then put away as fast as you took it out.
Yeah, I was really trying to analyze what I liked in this device, even beyond of what I mentioned in the review. One of the things is that was an afterthought. When you are with the family, I think I think that 90% of the time traveling of my family, I saw locations through a viewfinder. That's the sad truth. We know locations as beautiful they are through viewfinders. And that was one of the only times that I felt I don't have to be exact. I don't need to really concentrate on a certain framing. I can just go with the flow. And when I saw the results, I saw that it's really working. And nobody was upset. Nobody was mad. Nobody pointed a finger at me and say, "Hey, you are, filming us again," or had the urge to, or the need to stop and pause and whatever. It was all very, very relaxed. This is for the, let's call it, using the Osmo Pocket 3. And again, now it's the Osmo Pocket 3. I hope we're going to see many more of those. But one of the things that people kept asking, also in private emails, is really to see how that device can work for professional use. So I'm happy to say I already organized here in Japan a story that I will film on the 17th of August. Yeah. I don't know if you remember Wakamatsu-san, a great guy, used to work in Sigma, and he is a passionate motorcycle rider. He has two motorcycles. One is a BMW 1000cc, and the other one, now I have to remember carefully not to make a mistake, because he will. It's a Japanese, one of the Japanese leading brands. Yeah, I think it's a Yamaha, if I'm not mistaken. And Wakamatsu-san, I'm sorry if
Kawasaki? No,
not correct with it. I don't think so. He tried all of them, but I think I'll be more knowledgeable, of course, but closer to the time of filming. But he's really amazing with lens development, although he's not with Sigma anymore. But he is really a passionate rider, and he invited me to through talking and about Osmo and so on. I asked if I can actually escort him when he's practicing, because when he will have the actual race, of course, it's more limiting. You can't really be on the track itself. But I will not be in Japan anymore. This is happening at the last day of August. But he invited me, and I'm very much looking forward to put the Osmo Pocket 3 with, one second, where is this? I already got some variable ND filters. I have two of those. Don't know how well you can see this. It's a variable. That's crazy. I have two of those, and I already got. I ordered a Black Promised, just a little bit to make the picture a bit nicer and not so harsh. And then, of course, I will work on the Pro mode, and I'm intended to work on the minimum possible. Like equipment with me. I also asked Kane TV to send me one of those. They have this arm just to isolate some of the movements, so I can
put on
also
my car or the bike. Yeah,
exactly. So I'll be able to put it on the bike. They were very fast to respond. This is already on the way too. So basically, I will have minimum equipment. I will have a full day to film the surrounding, and Wakamatsu-san on his bike. And yeah, I'm very curious to see how this will turn out, like literally implementing that camera for a professional work. And by the way, one of the things with Japanese TV in general, and I'm sorry, I mean, they are very, when you look at the images on Japanese TV and talking about news, they are very easygoing. There is no, it's like news. It's really just news in the sense of picture. And when I see how they're filming news, I think that also that camera can be really great for capturing news in so many ways. I mean, you have to really follow people. You have to have a good audio quality. There's a certain thing. Of course, you're going to miss the zoom part, but for so many kind of close, short, medium interviews and so on, maybe that's what you need.
Talking about the audio, actually, that's what I wanted to ask you. I saw in your review you used the DJI Mic 2 with 32-bit, and there's a moment where you did a comparison between the internal mic, which is not so great, and this external one, the transmitter. I felt there's a huge amount of noise cancellation on this. Is there any way to, because it was almost like this moment you show those drummers, you hear the drums well, yeah, but you have absolutely nothing in the background anymore. To my taste, there's way too much noise cancellation going on in those. Is there any way to disable this? Because it sounds like the limiter is completely going crazy in a way. It's like when it's good for voice, I'm sure, but for this, I felt like it's losing ambience entirely.
First of all, that's not the aim of this mic in general. The mic was on me, and I kind of fell into an event, and I filmed and I said, it's a really, what else can I expect? They're drumming like crazy. They're doing a great job.
No, I just wondered if the recording that you get, because I know the 32-bit is only stored internally in the like in the transmitter.
I don't think there's any noise cancellation going on there.
So what you used was the one that was transmitted, or is this the processed 32-bit? Like, did you take it out of the transmitter, or was this? You
have to take it. You take it. You copy. Copy the file into your computer. I mean, the whole The mic is like an external SSD, whatever. And then you bring it into Premiere, and in Premiere you still see it cut, even if it's 32-bit. I'm talking about Premiere because that's what I'm using. So you have to right-click on the audio file, and there is a way there to kind of bring it to the original, and then you see how from kind of being cut, you really get everything. So all the bandwidth of the recording.
So you didn't add any noise cancellation in post?
Nothing.
Okay, I'll be curious to hear from our listeners and watchers if anybody has experience with this. To my taste, it sounded like there's a heavy amount of limiter, like audio limiter on this.
Interesting. I also have to check if I put a limiter.
Yeah.
No, but there's no limiter. I think there's only wind, like a wind cut or something. But
I had an issue like this before when I was using it. I don't know. Maybe Felix behind the scenes knows something. He's a microphone guy. But there's compression. A compression applied. Okay. And can you disable this or okay? Because I noticed this on just using this for normal talking as well. Okay, interesting. Because otherwise, of course, it would be great if you could just disable it and just have the flexibility in post. Yeah.
I just want to say that already. I mean, of course, we will discuss this in more details after I'm finishing the review itself. But I see already, because with the Mimo app, the picture, the color, like with the iPhone 15 Pro, and what you see on the app and on the Osmo Pocket 3 is very similar in terms of look, picture-wise. So all the control, or most of the control, you can really do from the app, which is much more legit than just fiddling with the little buttons on the device itself. Again, when you're working in a pro mode, and also to view the actual image, I think it's a bit easier with the app itself. But we will discuss this after the review.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure actually now it's been out like 8-9 months. So knowing DJI, we probably can expect another version of this by the end of this year. And I wonder if they will, because now we talked about this a little bit last week, but basically we now have gimbals on different ends of the spectrum from DJI. We have the Osmo Pocket 3, which is like really the entry level kind of small device, and then we have the Ronin 4D, which is a camera system by itself as well, but it has this fourth axis. I would love to see the fourth axis also on the small device. I think a lot of people, I mean, it's been out for 2 years now, and I feel like the Ronin 4D is really catching on now with bigger productions, which is funny.
Yeah, I saw it on the Olympic too. I mean, I saw it on
well,
TV.
Even I can tell you, even the requests we get here for the Ronin 4D, it's almost every week now that somebody's asking to test it and try it out for feature films and stuff. So that's very, very interesting. It's almost like they didn't notice it for the first 2 years, and now they see it in some, like the Civil War movie and so on. And then suddenly people, like also the higher end DPs, get aware of it and want to use it for some stuff. So that's quite interesting as well. It's a bit of a slow start for the Ronin 4D. But I feel like the vibe in the industry, and like you said in the Olympics, it's really catching on now. But yeah, I wonder if the fourth axis will also be addressed, maybe, hopefully, in a future version of the Osmo Pocket.
No more duck walk.
And we mentioned it before. I mean, there is actually, like last week, we cut a portion of our podcast when we realized, oh, actually, there is already something in between, which is the original Osmo Pro, which people
There's
kind
Osmo
of
Plus, Osmo Pro. There is a family of Pro. Yeah, that's right.
It's like its own camera system, which is like a larger version of the Pocket, which was there years before, but we kind of forgot about it because it's simply not popular.
You can't really find it. If you go to their homepage, there is no dedicated page for it. You really have to dig.
You have to Google for it. It's still on the site, but it's not linked anymore. Yeah. And it's funny that, I mean, it took them a while to kind of, it'd be very interesting to talk about I'm sure they, not willing to do this, but I would love to talk about the design with the design team of those things. Because they must have been frustrated over the years, but creating a lot of those things, and then after some years, finally something caught on. But yeah, I mean, that's really a new category, and I hope that other manufacturers can also come up with an innovative way of putting a camera into a different shape that is more easy to use. Yeah.
Great.
Good. Moving on from this whole have smartphones replaced cameras and Osmo Pocket 3 review. If you haven't seen Johnny's very nice review, please head over to CineD and watch it. It's really nice. I think it's a very fresh take on something, and I always love to see you enjoying using a camera, and it feels like one of those fresh reviews from many years ago when we were still more excited about normal cameras as well. Because it just shines through, of course. I feel your enthusiasm, and I think so does everybody who watches this. Moving on to actually another smartphone-related topic. Blackmagic released a new version of Blackmagic Camera for iOS. Now, we know that Blackmagic Camera for iOS, when it was first released, was very impressive. A lot of people said that it killed Filmic Pro, which moved into a subscription model, and at the same time offering actually probably less features than Blackmagic Camera, which is free for iOS. For those of you who don't know what it is, Blackmagic Camera for iOS and now also for Android recently is a free app that enables basically all the available manual functions in a smartphone for filming. And it's really taking it to the most professional it can get, probably, because in the most professional you can get out of the phone. So basically that means you can change shutter speed. You cannot change the aperture because those cameras generally have a fixed aperture. But if the hardware could do it, of course you could do it with this as well. You can change white balance, you can change frame rates, you can change resolutions, also high speed, normal speed. You can shoot in log, you can shoot in Rec 709, you can shoot in all different kind of stuff.
What's new with the new version, actually?
You can shoot in ProRes with the iPhone 15 Pro. With a new version, it's actually a huge leap this time. What they are adding, and that's really interesting, the main thing they're adding is remote control for cameras, like for other iPhones, and multicam. And it's basically completely doing what Apple has been doing with Final Cut Pro for iPad 2, which I reviewed. We put a link in the show notes as well, which is a great implementation. Of course, what Final Cut Pro for iPad 2 is basically a multicam recorder for up to 4 different iOS devices. I'm saying iOS devices because it can be either an iPhone or an iPad. And you can monitor them all at the same time, and you can record and change the controls on each of the cameras from an iPad. Now, Blackmagic Camera is doing the same thing, and it's also becoming an iPad app. So now you can just install it on iPad as well. All the scaling is correct. It's now also fully capable of being used on an iPad. You can define one of the devices, and it doesn't have to be the iPad. It can also be one of the iPhones as the control device. So if you don't have an iPad, you just use a normal iPhone, and you can add additional iPhones and connect them in a very similar way as on Final Cut Pro for iPad 2. And same thing, you can record all the cameras at the same time. I think like the Final Cut for iPad version, you cannot do live switching. Like you cannot, as far as I've seen, you cannot do the tab on the different cameras and kind of like do an edit decision list on that yet, at least. But other than that, I mean, also Blackmagic Camera cannot do it and Final Cut cannot do it, but it's really the same in the way it works, with the big difference being that Blackmagic Camera for iOS version 2 is free, and Final Cut Pro for iPad 2 is a paid subscription for like, I think $5 per month. And that's, of course, impressive because that basically means you can install this app on any iOS device you have, your colleagues have, your friends' family has, and then just do occasionally your multicam if you need it. It's
sometimes I'm really wondering if they synchronized, if Apple and Blackmagic are synchronized or not. Interesting.
I don't think so. I mean, nothing prevents them from putting these functions in there, of course. Again, as I said, it's still a free app. They probably try to tie it to their Blackmagic Cloud thing. We still have to take a closer look at this. I also want to review this because it's very interesting, of course, also in comparison to the Final Cut version. And but yeah, it basically has that. What actually I was a little bit surprised. I mean, this is the first step. We know that Blackmagic Cloud is also in some of the newer Blackmagic cameras, like the big actual cameras. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be able to take those feeds yet, which of course is only a matter of time. And as soon as this is available, I mean, that's really a revolution, because it means you don't need to use a lot of hardware products anymore to do that. It's a matter of time in terms of technology, I think. And I think Blackmagic has proven to be a quite disruptive company to implement those things. But it also means that you would literally not need some of their switches anymore if you did that. So the question is, will they just implement it like this? I think they will. Yeah, I mean, I think they will. You still are in their ecosystem, and it's probably a reason more to buy their cameras, because if you can use, even in an environment like here in the studio, we have here a Blackmagic Atom switcher, and also a Rodecaster 2 connected. But basically, in theory, you could get rid of the switcher and just use an iPad and have those 3-4 cameras connected. If you have the actual cameras there, and just do the multicam recording there, and maybe in the next version you can also do, the live switching. So exciting stuff, I think. But for now, it's the same as the Final Cut Pro version, I think.
Another thing that was added is this HD in 100 frames per second, and I'm just curious to see, because of course, I mean, so much work is still being done in HD and not 4K, 6, 8K. I'm really interested to see the quality of these 100 frames per second, and if it's cropping.
I think it's not cropping as far as I saw. But it does not work in log. So right now you can only do Rec 709 100 frames per second. I just did a brief test like if somebody else of you did a little bit of more playing with this, but I tried it on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and it was only able to do 100 frames per second in HD in Rec 709.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if you can do this in ProRes too. So yeah, but exciting stuff. Big upgrade actually to this app with a lot of new functionality. And for free. So there's really no reason for you to not try this out. To see everything that's new about the app, head over to CineD, link in the description below, actually, in our show notes, where we put the link to the full news report on this. Good. Next, I want to talk a little bit about a new technology that Meta announced. The company behind Facebook and Instagram, that for a long time thought that the metaverse is the next big thing, and now they're stuck with that name. But they're actually investing a lot of efforts in AI stuff, like all the big tech companies. But they are also releasing a lot of those things in open source, which is interesting. So as opposed to some of the other companies playing in this AI field, they are, interestingly, Meta, of all companies, is doing open source.
I think it makes a lot of sense. When one day when the regulator will start to really chase all others, they will be able to say, hey, but we are transparent. We gave everything. Everything is open. Whatever everything means, I don't really know. But I think then they will have an edge on the others.
Yeah, and I think Facebook, Meta, really still, and the Zuckerberg said this, they still suffer from the fact that they don't own any device ecosystem, which they try to establish. So, of course, they are at the mercy of Apple and their privacy rules and some others. So, by this, they try to kind of circumvent this.
So what is the new thing?
The new thing is called SAM2, and SAM stands for, Segment Anything Model. It's a video model that enables you to track objects in a video and isolate them and cut them out without using a green screen or anything like that. So it's basically using machine learning. It's recognizing objects in a video and it's enabling you to isolate them. And
such a friendly name, huh, Nino? When
Sam.
you hear, hey, Sam,
Yeah.
I want to use
well,
Sam.
I wonder if it's a play on Sam Altman, the OpenAI CEO, who always speaks in a very soft voice and makes us feel very good about the fact that everybody's losing their jobs over AI. But yeah, so there actually is a demo online of this Sam 2, and you can, if you watch the video version of this, I'm demonstrating it now. So it's like an online demo. You can play a video here, and while you're playing the video, you can click on an object in that video. Well, actually, I guess I should stop it, and then I can click on.
Are you with the football demo
wait a
now?
second. It's expired. I need to reload this.
Okay.
Sorry about that. It's an online demo. It's not a real thing, but yeah, now it's working, I think. So I can also, let me take a different video. So because everybody knows this main video, I'm taking this guy playing table tennis. So there's like a online gallery.
Your own. Yeah.
Oh, you can? Really? Oh, wow.
Wait, it says here, upload your own up to 70 MB.
Okay, wow.
And that will be interesting.
So I'm now doing this with another video, this table tennis player. So I just clicked on the table tennis ball, and then I can click track objects. And what it will do, I mean, this is a very, very fast moving ball, and you already see that it's completely tracking the ball. And what I can do next is like click add. Well, actually I have to click next. And now I can decide what I do with this ball. I can actually pixelate it. So then it's like just a bunch of pixels. Or I put an emoji on it. So now there's a smiley emoji on top of it.
Just make it disappear, then it's nice to see people playing table tennis in the air.
Put some burst. Well, the thing is, it's a white ball. If I make it disappear, it's a white hole. So it's not a big difference.
Okay.
But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, maybe this video is not the best example, to be honest. But if you try,
what do you say the implementation of this? What?
Well, it's incredible. I mean, if this really works, you literally. I mean, the question is always, of course, how well does it work at the borders? Because we know the typical problem of green screen is this green spill and all that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering how well the segmentation works. But just having the ability to select an object and isolate it and is, of course, amazing. I mean, that's something we haven't seen before. So now I'm putting a dog. Actually, it's selecting this dog. The dog is moving in between legs of a person, and it's almost doing a perfect job. You see sometimes there's a bit of an issue with some of the hair. It's a typical fine detail that you get with those things. But I mean, we should
not think broadcast. I think if you think about Instagram and other social media applications, that's very nice.
I mean, this is really, if this is implemented into, like you said, in the smartphone apps, or I mean, I'm sure they will put it in Instagram and all kinds of things. That's the stuff that used to be a lot of work and a lot of rotoscoping required can now be automated. And it's very, very impressive. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, maybe you know, maybe not, but if it's an open source thing, do we know how the model is being trained or what it's being trained on? Do you know if it's documented somewhere, or you simply don't have a clue?
Well, we have to dive into the research paper. I don't think it. Well, actually, it says you can also you can access the data set which was used to train Meta's Segment Anything Model 2. It includes 51,000 real-world videos and more than 600,000 spatiotemporal masks. So I guess I'm opening this now here. I mean, this is really scientific stuff. I can download the data set. Well, actually, I have to fill out a form, so I'm not going to do that. I guess it's going to be open source material. Otherwise, they would not be able to allow you to download that.
Okay.
So, or they own it or whatever. But it's not going to be copyrighted stuff in this case, luckily. Yeah, okay. But this is like you said. I think the first application is not going to be professional, but as this advances and gets better, of course, that's going to be big. Really, really cool. Even just to put a person that's walking in front of a text or whatever. I mean, you can do anything with this. So I'm sure it will not take forever for us to see a real world application of this in the near future, considering that it's open source and people can just implement it. Yeah. Very cool.
Okay.
So check that out. All the details and some examples are on CineD.com. Also some examples of animation videos that are using this and so on, and real world examples. Good. Moving on, we had a little poll that we ran this week, which was, which device do you mainly watch videos on? Very simple question. But in this day and age, of course, there's a lot of different screens at our disposal. Johnny, what's your take on this?
Well, first of all, I want to thank all of those. Actually, we can see exactly how many people that participated. So let me just see the
it's only
results
posted 2 days ago, so I think it was a few hundred so far.
I think it's more than 300 and people. I originally, I voted on my laptop because that's what I'm using. Again, the older I get, the smaller I get, and the less that I want to carry around. So if in the past I used to edit on a full, 2 screens and everything, now everything is mobile. I can edit everywhere in the world, from the local spa to the local coffee house while I'm vacationing in Japan. Joking. That's an internal joke between Nino and I.
I just keep making fun of Johnny because he makes those nice reviews and then he calls me from a spa. And it always feels like it's pure envy. It's pure envy on my part that I'm stuck here at the office and the studio while he gets to enjoy beautiful Japan over the summer. But that's, it's our internal joke. Yeah.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is that I really grew up to love a capable laptop. Yeah. And it took some time, but the one we have now, this Apple thing, what is it? M3, I think, Nino, that we have in the last 2 years.
We have the M2 Max, but
M2 Max? Okay, yeah. So then obviously it's doing a great job. I never think it's too slow or it's not capable. So obviously this is my main working viewing stuff, and then next to this is the smartphone. What I'm a bit sorry that we didn't allow in this specific poll is actually a vote for 2 devices. I think that would make me a little bit happier, but we allowed 1, and I personally voted for the laptop. But obviously what people are watching content most, obviously, according to this poll, if we take it as a, like a
it's almost...
It's a desktop computer, which we can understand why.
But it's almost an even thing between desktop, TV, and smartphone. I mean, we actually also the laptop. It's only 330 watts so far. So I'm actually surprised that not more people selected smartphone, to be honest. And TV is still a big chance.
Yeah.
We also didn't ask, how much time do you spend watching it? Because that would be a good question. Because I think a lot of people will watch, like every now and then something on a smartphone or Instagram Reels and so on. But actually in the evening, they sit down and watch longer stuff on their TV probably.
I envy those people that have the time to watch stuff. But it's really
Anyway, but this is, it's almost even. I mean, we have 25% desktop computer, 24% TV, smartphone 21, and laptop 20%, and then 8.5% on tablet, which actually are quite a high number if you look at if we look at our statistics of people accessing, for example, our website through a tablet, that's less than, it's like 5%, I think.
It's for me, it's interesting personally because I think I have I think it's already a 15 years old plasma TV from Panasonic, which when this will die, there will not be no replacement. Yeah, because I kind of
OLED.
All this OLED and all this, not for me. It was always this. If you remember, guys, there was a Pioneer Kuro, which means black with real blacks, and the Panasonic Plasma. Unfortunately, they don't make those anymore. And when this will die, personally, I will change to some sort of projector. I think for the cinematic look that I'm looking for, and that's what we usually see. It's let's say movies at home. We don't go to.
I'll invite you to our place next time you're back, and then see a properly calibrated LG 65-inch OLED, and it looks great. I mean, I think it's just the stuff you see when it's coming out of the box is horrible with all the. It is possible to make it look like as organic as a plasma, but with all the advantages of an OLED.
I wish there was a way to put one next to each other, but they're both heavy. I'm just saying, for me, like TV wise, of course, people are still using TV, but since at least at home, we are not really watching news or daily stuff. It's mostly films or TV series, and those are being shot quite nicely and being lit quite nicely. I will skip TV and move into a projector, like some sort of nicer, different, more cinematic look. But anyway, it's good to see that people are still using TVs, and of course, desktop computer. I guess that's what they're using for work.
It's just interesting that for me, that it's almost like an even thing between those four. And of course, this is not a representative poll because we would probably have to ask tens of thousands of people. But if you want to add your voice here and also add a comment here of your preferences, please head over to this article. We'll put the link in the show notes and make your voice heard. We're always curious. Moving on to the next topic, which is a little announcement that Sigma made. So Sigma didn't really show us anything, but they teased that there will be an autofocus Cine zoom lens prototype shown at IBC. Now, I thought like, okay, we have no images for this. Let's make a bit of fun. And I went to Photoshop and I took the, what is the lens that they have?
2440, the 2845 you put.
Yeah, but this I put the numbers on this lens. It doesn't exist yet. The 2845 so far is only a photo lens, and now it's going to be a Cine zoom lens with autofocus options, and nobody knows what it's going to look like. They just said it's going to have gears, and that's interesting, of course, because so far in the market there are no proper hybrid zooms, I would say. I mean, there's nothing. There was the Cine lens zoom. Well, there's a Cine zoom from Sony, I think, 1635, which is supposed to be a hybrid E-mount, but it's not really a cinema zoom. It still has a motor, like a fly-by-wire thing inside, and focusing is not going to be like a 270-degree barrel manual focus and so on. So, I just went to Photoshop and made something up, and I actually put it in the article and also in social media that this is made up, but a lot of people didn't read, and they were like, what? This looks fake, but it's funny. It's just funny. It got a lot of...
It is fake.
Got like 1,000 likes on Instagram.
I like the fact that you put the autofocus, manual focus at the front end. I thought that will alert people already, but... Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, exactly. And you know what took me the longest time to find a photo, because I was lazy and I didn't want to take a photo of one of our lenses. So to find a photo that had this switch, so I kind of looks
I'm
weird.
happy you did this and not AI, but anyway,
Yeah.
I have to say something in general, because I've been a few times, I visited Sigma and the factory. We already conducted few factory tours. I think we know the people behind some of the products. It's going to be interesting from many ways. One is Sigma is not an adventurous company, meaning they are always working on a solid ground, when it comes to lenses. So that's one side of them. On the other end, obviously they're trying to innovate here, which is very much welcomed. And I'm very excited, and I'm happy to see what they will do. So I really want to see how they will merge the two things together, innovation and tradition. So when I say tradition, I mean, my feeling is, and it's not that we have any background or knowledge on what's going to be there, I think that they will use, it's also a matter of cost, probably. My feeling is that it will be a existing lens, or a lot of elements from existing lens, and then on top of it, the innovation of autofocus. So that's why I'm very, very curious to see, and hopefully we can bring much more information during IBC about this. Maybe there will be even something to show, who knows. But I want to see how this will be implemented.
Yeah, I mean, the lens itself was announced with a lot of excitement, actually, recently, the photo lens, I mean. It's a 28-45. We did a video on this, a first look
Very
video.
fast lens, yeah.
It's the fastest zoom lens for full frame. And it's interesting because it's kind of, the very popular 18-35, which I love to use, is for an APS-C lens, f1.8 lens, tack sharp lens at every focal length. For me, it was always the perfect lens on crop sensor cameras on APS-C or super 35mm cameras for interviews. I used this a lot on, when I was still mainly using the FS7 because it's a super 35mm camera. With this lens, 18-35, it's perfect for this typical medium-size shot in an interview. Because usually it's very, very hard at 35mm or wider to get a shallow depth of field. And with this lens, you were simply able to separate your subject from the background, and it was tack sharp. It looks like a prime lens. And the 28-45 f1.8 DN Art is supposed to be the full frame equivalent. To that lens, which is great because now that everything has moved on to full frame, you were not able to use that lens anymore unless you were cropping into your sensor. So yeah, very, very popular lens, and very curious, of course, for a lot of filmmakers. This is going to be a great release when it comes out, and yeah,
let's see which mounts it will have, because if you remember, for example, when it comes to Canon RF, I think Canon is still limiting third party companies from having full frame, for example, only APS-C.
I think we can expect E mount and L mount. I don't think there will be anything else for the beginning. I think it was even announced, but yeah.
If you do Cine lens, let's see. Let's see.
Well, yeah, they don't really do PL lenses anyway, so yeah, I guess it's not going to be anything else, unfortunately. But yeah, hopefully RF at some point. Good. Yeah, so this we will report about at IBC, and hopefully we'll at least see the prototype then. Last topic for today, Atomos released a new product, which first in a while, actually. The last one was, I think, the Ninja phone. But now they're going back to the more traditional releases.
The core.
Well, kind of. It's because it's a monitor only. It's not a recorder. The Shinobi 2. And it's a new 5.2-inch screen. And the big innovation here is that it's now 1500 nit, as opposed to, for example, I think the Ninja 5 had 1000 nit. Now, it's interesting that, I find it interesting that it's not a new recorder. And I guess the reason is that the monitor market is simply bigger. Especially now that more and more cameras simply allow to record very, very good formats internally, even ProRes. The need for those external recorders is probably shrinking. That's my guess. And
I think it's a wide guess, because at the end, those cameras that can, for example, maybe an innovation would have been to record through USB-C into the monitor and not only HDMI. There are many cameras are now supporting this, so it really depends. We probably will have the chance to ask Jeremy, who came back to the company, or any of his representative, why they took this direction. But yeah, maybe it's a beginning of something for them. It's kind of a new generation after 3-5 years already since
5 years
Shinobi,
since the first one. But I think it's a smart move that in general they move into better monitors, because for me personally, the issue often was, even if you needed an external monitor, an external recorder, the small HD ones were better monitors. and because of their functionality and their operating system. Now, since Atomos has revamped their Atom OS completely, their monitors have become much better. Like it's less cluttered. It's much more intuitive how to operate them. You have all the functions there, and now also the screens get better. So they are moving much closer to the competition in that regard. The Shinobi,
also the price
and the Shinobi 2 is also slimmer. It's very slim, and it's supposed to be also very light, and it's cheap. I mean, it's $349, which is really, really good price actually.
Let's use the word modestly priced.
They somebody commented. They did not add the EL zones feature, which has become very popular. That's the Atlackman zones feature for exposure, which has become very popular over the last few years, which a lot of other manufacturers and other products have added. So that's a bit curious. I guess it's probably a licensing cost associated with it. So I hope they can add this in the future. A couple of people actually contacted us about this, why it's not in there. We don't know. And so maybe Atomos can reconsider adding this back in. And as a device, it looks very capable and very affordable. And what I always liked about the latest Atomos products, since the Ninja line, I would say, they are very well built. Like they look like they could take a beating, which probably was not the case with their earlier products. So let's see where this goes. The price is nice, as they say. Okay, so it's going to be interesting if they're going to release a new recorder at some point too. All right, let's wrap it up here. I think it's enough for the week.
Absolutely.
And thanks for everybody for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or everywhere else you can get podcasts. Give us a good rating there, please. We need it. We need more listeners. And of course, also on YouTube. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And hear you next week.
Thank you, guys.